So earlier this year, we took a look at what was the best match of every WrestleMania. And since it's the summertime, I think it's only fitting that we do the same thing for the biggest party of the summer. Now, just like with the Manias, I went back and watched all these shows from front to back, and to be honest, I think I had more fun doing this. Probably because it's a lot of stuff I hadn't seen before. Now, none of it's perfect, trust me. But today, let's put some shine on the positive. It's your boy Mo if you don't already know, and this is the best match of every SummerSlam. Let's get into it. Hey look, it's that one arena that's in every 2K despite nobody asking for it. But all jokes aside, as I went back to watch these early SummerSlams, I put myself in a mindset of expecting more pomp and circumstance instead of 7-star Tokyo Dome classics, right? And with that lens, this show was a lot of fun. I'm gonna give Match of the Night honors to the main event of the Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks too. When I watched it, it got me so invested for some reason, and the crowd was awesome. I just found the finish kind of funny. Miss Elizabeth showed a little extra skin, and these three bozos just didn't know how to act. Listen, I know Miss Elizabeth was more of a classy woman and didn't do that kind of stuff very often. It's just kind of funny, that's all. But I loved the continued teases at the end of Savage turning on Hogan because Hogan just had to get a little too close to Miss Elizabeth, man. No question, the best story of the 80s. So well done. Okay, Golden Era. I see you going 2 for 2 like this. Another good show, can't lie. Now, the main event ain't really all that great. I'm not really moved by Debo and Bonesaw going up against Terry and his annoying friend, but the rest of the show was pretty fun. For me, Match of the Night was the Ultimate Warrior versus Rick Rude for the IC title. Rude was able to get the best out of Warrior here, and the crowd ate everything up. Warrior was mega over, and I can definitely see why they tried to pass the torch to him at Mania 6 the next year. Didn't really work out in the end, but hey, I get why they did it. Alright now, the streak is over. This show is not good, man. Warrior and Rude did not go back to back because their steel cage match felt like a glorified house show match. Hogan and Earthquake? Man. Luckily we had the Hart Foundation versus Demolition in a 2 out of 3 falls tag match. This ain't no DIY versus the Revival type of classic, but it's a very solid match on a very weird show. Side note, get used to hearing Bret Hart's name for the next few entries. I'm just saying. So here you had the match made in hell, and then the match made in heaven. Quite fitting because that main event is actual hell to watch. And yeah, the wedding segment from Macho and Miss Elizabeth is nice, as long as you ignore the real life context. But holy shit, Mr. Perfect versus Bret Hart is so freaking good. This is one of those matches you have to actually sit down to watch to understand just how good it is. A technical masterclass right here, and that finish where it looks like Perfect is gonna go for a figure 4, but Bret blocks it and turns it into a sharpshooter for the win. Man, this is real graps, no cap. Considering how much of a success the show was, it's kind of crazy how this was the only major WWE event in the UK for a whole 3 decades. And I mean, the show itself overall is fine, but that main event, man, Bret Hart versus the British Bulldog for the Intercontinental Championship. The match itself is already an all-timer as we already know, but knowing the behind the scenes of the whole match and knowing that Bret had to pretty much call it all in the ring just makes it that much better. This was a face versus face match that was done to perfection. And if you ask me, it's the greatest title change in the history of SummerSlam. What the fuck is this poster, dog? Like, we know he is, but like, what kind of branding? Anyways, this show is awful. 1993 was not good for the Big Fours at all. The Rumble is bad, WrestleMania 9 is the worst ever, and Survivor Series 93, don't get me started, bro. And this show was just so weird. Bret couldn't even save it because he had to deal with 2 matches with both ending in a DQ. Who booked this shit? And the main event is somehow Match of the Night, and it was better than I expected, I'll say that, but the finish is just hilarious. So Lex Luger beats WWF champion Yokozuna by countout, meaning he doesn't win the belt, but this man decides, fuck it, I'ma just throw a whole ass parade. Man, Hogan leaving really threw these fools into a whirlwind, huh? Undertaker versus Undertaker, anyone? Anyone? Man, get that bullshit out of here. We are in the depths of the new generation era where they're literally just trying anything. We had Owen Hart versus Bret Hart for the WWF title in a steel cage. How the hell was this not the main event? Now, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I'm not the biggest fan of steel cage matches, but Owen and Brett were incapable of missing against each other. By far the best brother versus brother feud. No, I'm not counting Undertaker and Kane. For me, there was a perfect mix of some real graps and some really good brawling. And there were so many good false finish spots where you thought the match was over. A legit 5-star classic, no doubt about it. I hope that Vince got Razor and Shawn some chiropractor appointments after the show, because the carry job that these two put on was insanity. Legit, the worst SummerSlam of all time. Diesel versus Mabel. I hate it here. And I'm gonna keep it a buck. If it wasn't for this ladder match being on the show, I think I would have gave up on this entire journey of going through all these SummerSlams. Good Lord. Now, this is a rematch from WrestleMania 10, and I don't know if it's as good as the first one, but there were definitely some cool spots here. Razor working Shawn's injured knee throughout, a great callback with Razor moving out of the way of a diving splash from Shawn. The moonsault from the ladder was cool. Only weird part being the finish was a little messed up, but hey, it's wrestling. Shit happens sometimes, right? Another SummerSlam, another Shawn Michaels carry job, this time with Vader. I'm personally biased towards the David versus Goliath type of story, and this was done really well. Of course, there's that infamous spot where Shawn goes for a dive and Vader doesn't move when he's supposed to, so Shawn kicks him in the head. Oh, 90s Shawn Michaels. But other than that, an underrated match for sure. This show wasn't exactly the best, but I'll definitely say this is one of the most pivotal shows in WWE history when you think about it. First, you had the Owen Hart and Stone Cold match, which would have been match of the night, but you had that scary spot with the sit-out tombstone that broke Austin's neck, shortened his career, and made him change his in-ring style. So I'm going to tip my cap to the Hart vs. Soul match. Bret Hart versus The Undertaker with Shawn Michaels as special guest referee. Now, the match itself is fine, maybe a little too long, but that finish was absolutely incredible. Bret spitting in Shawn's face, leading to Shawn accidentally cracking Taker in the head with a steel chair for Bret to get the win. It's one of the best match finishes I've ever seen. And it set a lot of things in motion. This is what led to the first Hell in a Cell match at Bad Blood, and of course, the screw job a few months later. But I'm sure you've never heard of that, so we'll just move along. Now we're fully into the Attitude Era, and this was a really enjoyable show for sure. The MSG crowd is amazing. Taker and Austin have their best match together by far in the main event. But we also got the first flashes of greatness between The Rock and Triple H in their IC title ladder match. There weren't any crazy over-the-top spots. It was just the two of them beating the shit out of each other with the ladder with some good drama weaved in there. And that pop when Triple H won was deafening, bro. And looking at this, it's kind of crazy to think that the heel and face dynamic would be flipped when they have their big rivalry in 2000. But this right here was a star-making performance from two future GOATs. This show was overall solid, but what surprised me was that despite how good the main event triple threat match was, Shane McMahon versus Test in a street fight was just a little bit better. This was not something I was expecting to cook whatsoever, but it just clicked for me. Even with how overbooked it ended up being, I can't even explain it. Genuinely, just check out the match. It's that good. Now we've reached what I like to call the holy trinity of SummerSlams. 3 straight years of top tier shows, and it starts here in 2000. A lot of cool stuff here, man. Shane's first big fall, the triple threat main event. But yo, TLC 1 does not get the respect it truly deserves. Everyone hypes up TLC 2, which yeah, fair enough. But to me, this is just as good. The best way I can explain this is carnage. Absolute carnage. This was the best tag team wrestling ever got in the WWE. And shout out to these 3 teams for being the innovators. I'm sure most of us are all aware just how mishandled the invasion angle was. But man, you would not know it from watching this show. RVD and Jeff Hardy have a fantastic ladder match. Booker T and The Rock was a solid main event. But the story Stone Cold and Kurt Angle told in their match, such great stuff. No matter what Austin hit Kurt with, he would not stay down. 3 stunners, literally nothing was working. So Austin realized, yo, I deadass cannot beat this motherfucker. So what does he do? He just starts knocking down a bunch of WWF referees. But then Kurt hits an angle slam and it looks like he's done it. But then Nick Patrick, an Alliance referee, comes down and disqualifies Austin so that he can retain his title. Now that might sound shitty to someone who hasn't actually seen this, but if you know about heel Austin, you would understand just how cowardly he was presented. One of the few DQ finishes that actually enhances the story of a match. And you got the best commentary duo calling it all? Hell yeah, man. My favorite WWE pay-per-view of all time. Maybe it's the sentimental value of knowing that I was actually born 5 days before this show. Yeah, I'm young, whatever. But it's really the fact that there really isn't a single bad match on this entire card. Sure, there's a bad segment. Howard Finkel talking to Trish about his wiener. No thank you. But the matches all cook. Angle and Mysterio, Eddie and Edge, Benoit and RVD, Lesnar and Rock. Yes, even Taker and Test was enjoyable. But imagine that. The best SummerSlam of all time just so happens to feature the best SummerSlam match of all time. Shawn Michaels versus Triple H in an unsanctioned match. This is the match I use when I want to talk about Shawn Michaels being the in-ring GOAT. The man retired for 4 years because of a bad back, came back and had a 5-star classic on day 1. You can't convince me he's not the one, man. You just can't do it. The entrance was awesome. The match was so brutal. Triple H targeting the injured back that kept Shawn out for so long, and Shawn pulling out the win in the end just for that piece of shit Triple H to get the sledgehammer and put Shawn back on the shelf. And you got JR spazzing on commentary. Man, I love this match. This show is actually pretty good as well. Maybe not on the same tier as the last few, but still a fun watch. Thanks a lot, Triple H, for ruining the chamber match. But luckily, we got more real graps because Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle absolutely cooked. I love when these two wrestled because they do not miss, and I would argue this was better than their Mania match. I've enjoyed Brock Lesnar in his second run, but this was peak in-ring Brock for sure. And Kurt is Kurt. Also, one of the few times you'll ever see Brock Lesnar tap out, which is actually pretty cool to see. Of course, the SummerSlam that doesn't get talked about, and obviously, we know why. But yeah, this show isn't actually very good anyways. Probably coming down to the fact that almost every match is under 10 minutes, and surprisingly the best match isn't Kurt versus Eddie. Probably because there's a little too much Luther Reigns for me. Please get him off my screen. But yeah, I gotta give it to the main event of Chris Benoit and Randy Orton. Not exactly an all-timer, and we all know why Randy got the title, but he really held his own here against Benoit in a really good match. Too bad we can't really talk about these things too much nowadays, huh? No doubt the weirdest SummerSlam of all time. So weird, in fact, I made a whole video on it. Check it out if you want. But yo, I want to be petty so bad and say match of the night is HBK versus Hogan in the main event. I get it, it's a straight up clown show, but you're not going to tell me it wasn't wildly entertaining. But I'll give it to the ladder match between Eddie and Ray. This was a really fun match. That stipulation though, we're coming up on 20 years and it doesn't get any less funny. Imagine having to explain this to somebody who doesn't watch wrestling. And also, where the fuck was Vicky? God damn it! I love this show, man. This was another weird show, and not so much in an enjoyable way. Foley and Flair beating the hell out of each other at a combined age of 97, which was a little too uncomfortable. Hogan beating a young legend killer Randy Orton in his last WWE match. Okay, maybe that's not weird, but you get my point. I'll give Match of the Night honors to John Cena and Edge in the main event. Not much to say about it, it's not exactly a barn burner, but it's a very solid match between two great rivals. Despite the nostalgia of this being the first SummerSlam I watched in real time, this was not a fun rewatch at all. WWE coming off the whole Benoit tragedy and the second steroid scandal were in a complete tailspin, and you can really see a lot of that here. I will say though, the main event of John Cena and Randy Orton absolutely delivered. And sure, they would end up having too many matches down the line, but this was a time when this matchup was actually fresh, and they did their thing. One of the few great matches between the two. Yeah, I said it. Such an underrated SummerSlam, and to me, this is where I like to draw a line under the Ruthless Aggression era. Sure, you can argue it really ended when WWE turned PG a month earlier, but I said what I said and I'm always right, get over it. Of course, the show was closed by the awesome Hell in a Cell match between Undertaker and Edge, and even with their PG constraints, these two put on a straight up banger inside the cell. And the cathartic end for so many kids my age, where Taker seemingly ended the biggest op of an entire generation. Y'all thought. I love this show. This SummerSlam brings back a lot of good memories. And for such a weird year, there was a lot of good on the show. And it just so happens to feature the apex of my favorite rivalry of all time, Jeff Hardy versus CM Punk, this time in a TLC match. So many great spots, especially that swanton off a ladder through the announce table. Holy shit. But when Punk won, my childhood trauma came flowing back to me. And of course, that fucking steel cage match on SmackDown. Some part of me still hates you, Punk. Oh, hey, thanks, Taker. Let me put this into perspective for y'all. This show is so bad that the best match on the card by a country mile infamously ends with one of the worst booking decisions in the history of the WWE. The 7-on-7 tag match is actually pretty alright. The return of Daniel Bryan, Bret Hart showing small flashes of his old self, Khali getting removed from the match is pretty fun. But god damn it, Super Cena, man. This was the peak of it, and oh my god, they just went about this in such a dumb way. Killed the Nexus, and for what? And I don't want to hear that hindsight argument either. Who knows what these guys could have done? If only they, I don't know, won the match? Let's just move on. Yay, it's the summer of Punk. Oh shit, you broke it. But hey, even if you remove the stupidity of Kevin Nash's nonsensical return and Alberto Del Rio's unnecessary cash-in, I gotta give it to Randy Orton versus Christian. Their rivalry throughout the summer of 2011 is supremely underrated, and their chemistry is fantastic. The no DQ element added a lot to this match, and that RKO, man, brutal. Just brutal. Gotta feel bad for Christian though, man. He never really got the run he deserved. But it's better than an hour. Ain't that right, Ray? A storm is coming, huh? Well, go ahead and fire that meteorologist because this shit mid. This is just a really unmemorable SummerSlam. Even the main event between Brock and Triple H, while sure match of the night, was just alright. Even with the no DQ element. It made Brock look really good though. I like how they teased a Triple H retirement at the end. Yeah, alright. Fun fact though, this is actually the last match he would wrestle with long hair. Was that important? Nah, just thought it was interesting. Honestly, with this one, take your pick. If you choose Cena versus Daniel Bryan, that is completely valid. But honestly, I think Punk and Lesnar is just as good. And maybe it's that David versus Goliath bias I have, so I'll give it the win by a hair. But seriously, both these matches carry this show into all-time great status for me. Brock Lesnar versus John Cena is a top 10 SummerSlam match of all time. I don't care. And look, I get it. It sounds crazy. But it's the context behind it all. Super Cena, at some points, even as a Cena fan, was legit the most nauseating character in the WWE. Go back to the 2010 entry for a great example. But you got this monster in Brock Lesnar who's coming off the most monumental win maybe ever. And they use this match to capitalize on that in the best way possible. 16 minutes of Brock just eating Cena alive. Even when John got his little bit of offense, Brock would just laugh it off. This was shock value at its finest. And this is one of the few matches I can think of where a dead crowd added to the value of a match. They were just so stunned to silence from what they were seeing, but that's exactly what it needed to be. Rest in peace, Super Cena. And also, rest in peace to the big gold belt. God damn it, Jon Stewart, I fucking hate you, dog. John Cena and Seth Rollins were on pace to having a 5-star match, no joke. It was peak US Challenge John Cena going up against pre-knee injury Rollins with the amazing white suit, and they were absolutely killing it. And the crowd was so into it too, so many great false finishes. It's honestly still a classic, but this is WWE in 2015. They just had to find a way to fucking ruin it. Well done. On paper, this really should have been the best SummerSlam of all time, at least from an in-ring standpoint. You had Balor and Rollins having actually a pretty good match, but it gets ruined with the fans crying about the belt design at ringside the whole time. Granted, the belt is incredibly lazy and kinda ugly, but can we at least pretend to care about the match? Lesnar and Orton was a dream match for many, but then we had that damn finish. What the fuck, bro? But, of course, John Cena versus AJ Styles. A match that even 3 years before just seemed impossible, but when we got it, it was beautiful. AJ was just having an amazing WWE rookie year, and him pinning Cena clean solidified him with that stamp of approval that he had officially arrived. Man, did the Raw matches carry this show. The only good SmackDown match was on the damn pre-show. But the main event car crash between Strowman, Joe, Reigns, and Lesnar for the Universal title, I don't even think my words can do the match justice. It was just mayhem from bell to bell. This was Braun at the peak of his popularity, and he was just destroying everything and everyone. If you somehow haven't seen this, please check it out. It's an absolute banger. This show for me was more about the moments over the matches. You had Becky turning on Charlotte to start her incredible rise, and Roman finally beating Brock after what felt like 1,325 fucking tries. But the opener between Seth Rollins and Dolph Ziggler is legit one of my favorite matches of all time. These two were carrying the abysmal show that was Monday Night Raw at the time, and this was the peak of their rivalry. The standing ovation these two got in the middle of the match was well deserved. That reverse superplex into the spinning sidewalk slam, dog, such a great false finish. To me, the second best opening match in the history of SummerSlam. No question about it. For this being my least favorite year as a fan, this was actually a pretty fun show. Goldberg destroying Dolph, we got the debut of The Fiend, Trish and Charlotte cooked, and with Match of the Night, the main event absolutely delivered. Going into the show, fans started to sour on Seth Rollins, but by the end, he brought them back. He and Brock just killed it. And Brock has always been known to work best with the smaller guys, and this is just prime example of it. It was a sprint from the jump, and it didn't really drag at any point. Too bad the Rollins title reign didn't end up working out. Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh boy, the weird times. But hey guys, look, there's people behind screens. Look, obviously the show gets taxed because, well, no fans, right? But there was some really good stuff here. And what doesn't get enough recognition is the WWE title match between Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton. I remember enjoying this match at the time, and it was even better than I thought. Randy and Drew just worked really well together, and even without real fans there, they put on a really great match. But also, shout out to the beginning of the Tribal Chief. You know, I remember fans loving the show in real time, probably because we were still in the honeymoon phase of fans being back in arenas, but there is a lot of nonsense here. Becky beating Bianca in 30 seconds, Eva Marie and Alexa Bliss being a pay-per-view match, Drew McIntyre and Jinder Mahal being a pay-per-view match. I mean, come on. But Edge and Seth Rollins absolutely killed it. The fact that this was only the beginning of their amazing rivalry says a lot. This was a dream match that 1000% delivered in the end. And that Brood entrance. I remember jumping out of my seat when the music hit. I was marking out, bro. But yeah, cool stuff. Dude, Brock Lesnar came out with a tractor and used it to lift up the ring with Roman in it. Do I need to say any more? Sure, we were all really tired of these two wrestling all the time, but thank God they ended their rivalry with the last man standing match. Now please, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, please never wrestle each other again. And the most recent SummerSlam, unfortunately, just so happens to be one of its biggest letdowns. On paper, the card was pretty stacked, but they left a lot to be desired. God damn Jimmy Uso. But to me, the best match of that show had to be Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor. The callbacks to their first SummerSlam match were dope. Rollins wearing the same vest, Balor hitting that buckle bomb on the barricade. So many good false finishes, especially that last coup de grace. But of course, Damian Priest just had to stick his nose in Finn Balor's business, and it backfired. It's crazy to think just how long they've been teasing the Judgment Day breakup, and I wonder how they're going to tease us with it this year. And that's it. The best match of every SummerSlam. It was an enjoyable ride for sure. Got to see a lot of new stuff, but also get to revisit some good old memories. Now, if you disagree with any of the choices on the list, let me know down below. Let's have some fun convos. But I'm just saying, if anyone says Diesel versus Mabel moved you, you're going to have to get cooked. I'm not going to hold you. But that's going to be it for me. I appreciate every single one of y'all that made it to the end. If you enjoyed the video, let me know by hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, commenting down below, and sharing the video around. Got more SummerSlam content coming out for y'all. I'll see y'all soon. I'm out of here. I'm gone.